am Matthew Phelps, co-author of the Turning to God's Word Bible study, In the Beginning, the book of Genesis. Today we'll be talking about Lesson 5, The Wickedness of Man was Great, which covers the book of Genesis, chapter 5, verse 1, through chapter 6, verse 10. Let's begin. This is the book of the generations of Adam. When God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. Male and female he created them, and he blessed them and named them man when they were created. When Adam had lived 130 years, he became the father of a son in his own likeness, after his image, and named him Seth. So we have some retelling here from the Genesis chapter 1, from that creation account, of the God creating man in his image and likeness. And we see now here Adam's son is likewise in his image and likeness, which would mean also in God's. But his son Seth, not his son Cain. Note the deliberate leaving out of Cain. Cain sinned and he is not in the image and likeness of God. But Seth is. So Seth is the one that is important to our story. The days of Adam, after he became the father of Seth, were 800 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. So, the serpent's cunning remark that if you eat you will surely die is correct. It's just delayed by about 900 years, which is a long time. This is a weird thing, the length that that Genesis accounts some of our early ancestors as having lived. And it is seemingly not consistent with what we have of a fossil record or things we've seen. But again, this is not purporting to be a story of scientific detail about the origins of the world and humanity. This is, the important thing is, far distant past, these people with less sin in the world and less corruption, the implication is tended to be able to live longer. And it is, ultimately God limits the lifespan of people, and we'll see that before too long in the book as well. So Adam died at 930 years old. When Seth had lived 105 years, he became the father of Enosh. Seth lived after the birth of Enosh 807 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. Same kind of deal with Seth. Seth has children. The one that's worth naming is the oldest son. We're going to see the line passing down generally by oldest sons, although there are many notable examples of that not happening. That is the normal progression of this. When Enosh had lived 90 years, he became the father of Canaan. Enosh lived after the birth of Canaan 815 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. When Canaan had lived 70 years, he became the father of Mahalalel. Canaan lived after the birth of Mahalalel 840 years, and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. So we see some more progression. We see how long did you live before you had your first child, and how long after, and what was the name of your first child. And we go through another couple of iterations here. This is our first big genealogy in the book of Genesis. It's worth noting in these sections in the Bible, when a lot of these old Hebrew names that aren't very common anymore, or even Greek ones in the New Testament, come up. In Bible study, it's not necessarily always important that we 100% accurately pronounce the names. If you're lecturing, absolutely, make sure you look it up and do the very best that you can to pronounce everything correctly. But don't let a fear of, I'm not sure if I can pronounce this correctly, stop you from participating in Bible study. In all honesty, if you just read it like confidently, like you think you know how it's pronounced, nobody's even going to know that you didn't know. Or you can just kind of gloss over it and use placeholders or whatever you want. Don't let fear of pronouncing the name stop you from reading the Bible, because really it's not that important. And for the sake of these videos, we're definitely doing the Bible study form of reading these. I don't know 100% how all of these are pronounced either, but let's journey together, and we'll do the best that we can. And if you read along, you'll know how it's spelled. And then you'll know if I do something wrong. When Mahalalel had lived 65 years, he became the father of Jared. Mahalalel lived after the birth of Jared 830 years, and he had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. Notice that people are trending slightly younger when they die. Ever so slightly. The difference between 930 and 895 is, 35 years sounds like a lot to us, but if you're living that long, it's not that big a deal either. But people are trending slightly younger. When Jared had lived 162 years, he became the father of Enoch. Jared lived after the birth of Enoch 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. Well, they were trending down. Then you have Jared live longer than anybody has so far, 962 years. When Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. Enoch walked with God after the birth of Methuselah 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Enoch were 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. This is a weird aberration. Enoch is described as walking with God, and doesn't make it anywhere near the length of life that the other people did. And he walked with God and was not. Not he died, just he walked with God. Which is a weird account. Many people place him, scholars place him in a category with Elijah, who was assumed into heaven and never died, as the two people in the Old Testament that we never see actually die. And some art depicts them waiting up outside of the gates of heaven for Jesus to come. Because of course they can't go in yet, but they're heaven adjacent in the afterlife, just waiting for Jesus to do his thing, or some of the depictions we've seen. But it is an odd thing to see he walked with God. And it's worth making note of for sure. When Methuselah had lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. Methuselah lived after the birth of Lamech 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. When Lamech had lived 182 years, he became the father of a son, and called his name Noah, saying, Out of the ground which the Lord has cursed, this one shall bring us relief from our work and from the toil of our hands. Lamech lived after the birth of Noah 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. So, you always know something. Well, we all know Noah, right? He's the Noah. This is the Noah that does all the things we're going to talk about presently. But you always know in the Bible somebody's going to be a bigger deal when you go through one of these patterns and the pattern breaks, right? Right from the beginning of Lamech became the father of a son is already more language than had been used. That added language, that added emphasis is already suggesting, oh, this is different, this one might be important. And then it just keeps being different and building and building. And so you know this, even if we didn't know the story, we would have every indicator that this Noah guy is going to be a big deal. But of course, we do know the story, and he is. But it's neat to watch for some of those changes and some of that added detail, because you can kind of, in cases of people where maybe we're less familiar with a certain part of the Bible, and we don't know all of the stories, you can already see something coming and guess somebody's going to be important if you're paying attention usually. After Noah was 500 years old, Noah became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. When men began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were fair, and they took to wife such of them as they chose. This is weird. This is a last, probably, vestige of some of the odd nature of this literature as myth is we see sons of God and sons of man. There's an idea there were people around, and then there were kind of crossing in the idea of there are God's people and there are these other people, and there are maybe people who descended from gods or giants, a la Greek mythology. These weird category of people will see show up a little bit, but kind of a way of explaining some of the preeminent, outstanding legends of people who just were really ahead of and above other people, kind of lead to some of this sort of thing. But ultimately, so God's people, the sons of God, see the daughters of man, and they are attractive, and so they seem like good choices for marriage, and so that is happening. Then the Lord said, "My spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh, but his days shall be 120 years." So here we go with limiting the lifespan. After we've seen average lifespan around 900 years, now it's 120. And note that that comes after humanity is seen as mixing with the people who have been with God, and the descendants from the garden as mixing with other people is around the time that that's happening. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men that were of old, the men of renown. So we talked about that. We've got three categories of people. We've got these Nephilim, we've got the sons of man, and the sons of God. But ultimately, all coming together are just people. And this is really the only mention of that, and the only time it's worth knowing. Just know, hey, there are people around, and there are lots of people, and they're intermarrying and intermixing. And now people aren't going to live so long. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, "I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the ground, man and beast and creeping things and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them." But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So, as people are spending less time with God and are intermixing and intermarrying and behaving badly, God says, yeah, maybe we don't need to do this whole thing. Maybe I was wrong to make people. And I guess the animals that are here for the sake of the people. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe we shouldn't have made any of this. This is not going well. But look, that Noah guy is pretty alright. And in that sense, Noah becomes a type of Jesus Christ. Again, where you see, well, humanity not doing so hot. Look at all these people sinning. But that Jesus guy, he's pretty alright. Maybe humanity's okay. But of course, Jesus is much more than pretty alright, and is able to reconcile all of humanity to God. But here is kind of a first pass at that, where Noah is pretty alright. Certainly not Jesus caliber, but he's a good guy. And a good type of Jesus, which is where you see someone kind of foreshadowing something that Jesus will do. We call that being a type. And Noah found favor with God. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God, and Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. So, God doesn't like his creation, but there's this one guy that he does like, so we'll see next time how he decides to go about solving this problem. He has a pretty drastic solution in mind that we will explore, and of course it's the flood. We all know that already, but we'll look at it next time. This has been an overview of Lesson 5 of the Turning to God's Word Bible Study, In the Beginning, the Book of Genesis. For more information, consult our written study, or visit us online at turningtogodsword.com.